Hello, my name is Janice B. Gordon, and this is Scale Your Sales Podcast. Welcome to Scale Your Sales Podcast, listed number 9 of 43 best podcasts for every sales professional. I am Janice B. Gordon, the customer growth expert, awarded by RevTech Strategist of the Year for 2024. In today's episode of Scale Your Sales Podcast, my guest describes himself as a sales contrarian. And within 5 minutes, I understood exactly why. He is very much no nonsense about, I'm very clear about how sales needs to adapt and change, adapt or die, he says, and has the methodology in order to help sales leadership, CEOs do the very thing. We're very much aligned that we use a very similar methodology. So he talked through where he sees sales leadership going wrong and what needs to change. My next guest is the CEO and founder of the Sales Collective. And to say he is a contrarian comes as something as an understatement. His organization works with companies whose leaders have enough self-awareness, emotional intelligence, vulnerability to acknowledge they don't know everything. So welcome to Scale Your Sales Podcast, Steve Heroux.
Yes, ma'am. Nice to be here, Janice.
Oh, it's wonderful to have you here. You know, Steve, I was reading some of your posts on LinkedIn. I thought, I have got to get Steve on here. I love what he has to say. But really, Steve, you seem to be a really positive and pleasant person. So why would you label yourself the sales contrarian?
It's funny. Really great news that just happened with the book coming out and a couple other things that I'm working on. And people are like, well, what is this contrarian thing? And people ask me before I do keynotes, and I watch some of yours. Awesome job, by the way. Like, what are you going to talk about? And I said, well, I'm going to try to undo 99% of what y'all have been taught about sales and sales leadership. And so when I watched your intro on YouTube, when it said, if you're, and you say it better, it sounds better in a British accent, but if you're the macho, targets and, like I despise all of that. It's abhorrent. And so all of this, always be closing and you got to hit the quota, Tim. It's just mind-numbingly stupid. And so that's part of why I wake up every day, is just changing this perception of salespeople.
It's really interesting because I read your post and I thought, I've got to get him on here. And that's really the connection, isn't it? We've made the connection. And I don't understand, Steve, why so much still needs changing. Like why we still have that, always be closing. And I must say, particularly in America, it's still very get on the phones, numbers, all of that. Yeah. And when I started in sales in the 1990s, mid 1990s, we very much took the kind of numbers, stand up, cold calling, don't put down the phone, save time, just keep dialing for dollars. That was very much the mentality of sales as I grew up in sales. And it wasn't until I moved on to customer experience, I realized, oh my God, we've got it all wrong. Your customers, that's what should be our starting point. They have all the answers. And why are we pushing it down the line rather than listening to them? So yeah, that's where I kind of got my enlightenment from.
Yeah, it's pretty scary. There's a reason, everybody, we don't use beepers and VCRs anymore. We've advanced, but in the sales world, we haven't, and we still use beep. It's just insane. And the challenge is that, and this is just normal daily life, but when you've been told something over and over and over and over again, even if it's a lie, people start to believe it. So when you think about all the things we've been taught, and you just pick one out, bats are blind. No, they're not. Bats, the average bat sees 3 times better than human beings. You'll like this one. You probably know this being over there. Napoleon was short. No, wrong. Napoleon was average height for his time period, but the British media printed he's a short guy, he's a troll, all this stuff. So then people started to believe it. And now 200 years later, Napoleon is, a complex.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make it true if you keep doing it over and over again. But that's what's driven all of this sales jargon and always be closing. And then you've got the real problem, which is the leaders of companies and most private equity, right? Who are just clueless. It's just numbers, numbers, numbers. Like, don't you understand your customers are the ones that will help you grow? And if you alienate them and upset them, you grow less. But they don't understand this, right? Because they're just adhering to spreadsheets and
Yeah.
hey Janice, we did 2.2 million last quarter. This time last year, this time we're doing 2.43 and based on what exactly? Well, we just added 12%. Yeah, but it's a different marketplace and different climate and different business and different people and different product. Well, I know, but the spreadsheet says this. Well, it's just like, and you wonder why salespeople hate what they do now. Um, it's funny, Kate and I were talking about this, and then another client at a Vistage talk. Have you ever done, I'm sure you have, but and anybody on the podcast listening, have you ever asked all your customers, why they bought from you and what they got out of it? So we did this study and shared this on a different podcast, and it was like 200 and something clients. Why they hire the sales collective. And we thought, it was to help generate revenue and increase sales and blah, blah, blah. And then we asked, what did you get out of the engagement? And it was shocking, frankly, in a good way. The number two answer we got from all our clients was they made it fun to come to work again. The environment, right? The culture. It wasn't sell or die or any of that crap. But the number one answer was they made sales fun again. So if you think about whatever you do for a living, if you love it and somebody sucks the joy out of that for you, are you going to enjoy going to work? And are you going to be productive? There's not a chance on earth. And it's just what all these companies, not all, most, right, are doing to their salespeople. And then they wonder why they're not selling. Like McFly, anybody home? I mean, what is this? So yeah, so that's why I do what I do, right?
Okay, I see why you're the sales contrarian now.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
see it. Okay, I'm going to pick some of this apart.
Okay.
Because I've had lots of experiences, sales leaders that say they want to recruit for diversity. You actually give them a way to actually do that. You both use an excellent tool that
Yes.
takes a lot of the bias out of
Yeah.
recruitment. So, you can afford to more or less put anyone through it, and the filter is the filter that's being created over sales success and sales specific, predictive, all of that.
Yep.
And then they don't go for it. They go for CVs, interviews, which have
Yeah.
the predictive effectiveness
Yeah.
of 20%, really pretty poor. And they
Yes.
pay 20,000 to a recruiter that's incentivized just to recruit,
Yes.
recycle old people that
Yes.
have traditional skills. And it's like, really? Really? I've
Yeah.
just given you a great way that's proven and guaranteed, and you're still sticking with the old methods.
Yep.
So how do you get over the frustration when you actually know a better way of doing it, but actually you're working with a lot of traditional people that have always done things in a certain way? And not only that, the funders expect them to do it in that way. So how do you get through that?
It's part of and I watched one of your keynotes and we're talking about your ideal customer, right? And who do you work with and to whom should you sell? Um, we just stopped working with those people. It's it seems like an easy answer, but in our discovery process, like I can tell you in 5 seconds if they're the person who's an open critical thinker or if they're the person who goes, no, this is how we've always done it. We're going to say, no thanks, right? Here's so and so, right? Your money is no good, right? And so we've been very selective with who we work with now. So that almost never comes up, right? But we have to do the due diligence to understand if this person is going to be, hey, we're hiring you, y'all are the experts, just tell us what to do. Or if they're like most companies who are out of shape, they hire a personal trainer and then they go, I don't want to do those exercises. What do you mean? But you didn't you hire me to do this? Yeah, and I don't like the meal plan either. Sorry, what? Yeah, no, I'm just gonna do what I want to do. You know what it's like? Actually, and I just thought of this. It's just like another guy that you know well, right? Gordon Ramsay. You have a similar name, right? When Gordon goes into restaurants, right, and he does this uh, kitchen nightmares, they have no customers, none. And he asks them, how's your food? And they go, oh, it's 10 out of 10. You should have this shepherd's pie, right? Dogs won't eat it. So he goes, where's the customer? Right. So he redesigns the menu, right? Redesigns the place, puts new equipment, everything. Then the customers come. Then he leaves. And I don't know if you even know the statistics. It's something like 85 or 90%. 85 or 90% of the restaurants who were failing go back to what they were doing before he got there and go, hey, let's put up that, the urine colored wallpaper we had. Can we get that back up there? But so what do you say? Yeah, I don't like this new beautiful design. This is stupid. Like, really? So we do our best to find out who those restaurateurs are before we even attempt, right, to come in and build a brand new restaurant for them. It just saves us an immense amount of headaches.
Right. So I often find that you'll have an enlightened CRO sales leader, but then you'll have the exec team, the CEO that isn't, that can't see it. Or
Yeah.
sometimes it's the other way around, in which case you need to get rid of your sales
Yeah.
leader. But that's another whole process before you even get to work with the sales team.
It happens all the time. And I'm on the road pretty much every week, right? Doing talks and Vistage talks and all this stuff. And when I talk to folks and afterwards they come up and I'm with them for 3 hours, right? So this is not even like you could see I'm a contrarian in 12 seconds, but they get 3 hours of this. So they're like, Steve, this is awesome, but the person you're talking about is my CEO. Like they don't get it. And I'm banging my head against the wall. How do I get them to see it? And my normal answer is start looking for another job. You can't fight City Hall. They are so narrow-minded. You have to be in a place that respects you, your opinions, your value, that is forward thinking, right? Not, you know, it's funny. I'll get answers from CEOs a lot of times that are just antiquated would be an understatement. And sometimes I'll say it out loud. I don't mean to, but I'm like, oh, excuse me, guys, for a sec. Hold on. It's 1975 calling. Mike, it's for you. Um, it's 2024. These people lead like it's 1974, and then they blame millennials or Xers or whatever. It's like, look, adapt or die, and that's it. You either learn how to work with these folks or you don't, and just have a company of people exactly like you. So good luck, right? And we'll gladly refer them to another sales training company, which will remain nameless.
Yeah, and I've never called myself a sales trainer, because I know 2 years later they're training for the same thing again. It doesn't really
Yeah.
work unless you
Yeah.
change mindsets and behaviors, and
Yep.
really understand that actually half the people on your team should not be in your team.
Correct.
Or they're in the wrong position.
Yeah.
What's the point in training these people that shouldn't really be in sales? It's pointless. There's a point you need to start at, and that's not it.
Yep. 100%. It's funny. I don't know if you're watching the Olympics, and y'all, when you hear this
Yeah.
recording, the Olympics are going on right now. It's so amazing to watch these women and men. And if you just think about, right, we're in the Summer Olympics and you could pick any, just pick gymnastics, right? Because we're watching Simone Biles. There's a skill set, right, that you have to possess for specific apparatus. You cannot just say, oh, she's an athlete, she'll be good at gymnastics. What are you talking about? Well, yeah, she runs the 100. What? Sorry, what do you mean? Well, you know, Sha'Carri Richardson, she's the fastest woman in the world. She could do balance beam. What the hell are you talking about? Well, it's sports. No. Well, it's sales. No. And so you have athletes who are extremely good at floor exercise and extremely good at rings and extremely good at pommel horse, but they're not all Simone Biles. So you have to put people in the right role. And that's why when we talk about using, right, assessments and, okay, this person is perfect for rings. Cool. Let's hire her for rings, not floor exercise. But that's what companies have done for 100 years. And they're like, well, she sounds good and talks good. Let's put her in outside sales. No, she should be an inside. Or it's very strange, right? That in normal daily life, nobody does it that way. But in business, that's how they do it.
I think that there's a misperception that sales is similar to any other role, whether you're recruiting for HR or, even marketing to a certain extent. There's only kind of like a few different positions in marketing, whereas actually in sales, you've got the kind of verticals, the horizontals,
probably thousands, right?
I mean, exactly. So you really need to understand what you're recruiting for. And it's really interesting that you might have a top seller. And why do you think that you're going to take them out of that culture, out of that vertical, and simply because they've been a top achiever there, you're moving them into a different environment and they're going to be successful there? Why do we have that mindset? Everything has changed around them, but you still expect them to be successful.
Yeah, it's just insane. Like in your world, right? In UK, like hey, we got Harry Kane. Hey, you want to play goalkeeper? No, what do you mean? I'm like the best goal scorer in British history. No, I know, but you could play goalie. No, this is what companies do. It's crazy. In a restaurant, you're our best server. You are so incredible, Monica. You are the greatest thing. Why don't you just be the executive chef? So, what did you say? Well, you're an amazing server and you've worked at the company for 6 years. Just be the chef, right? And this is why, on a separate note, why when companies not only move salespeople, but they try to wedge a salesperson into becoming a sales manager, which again is just abundantly clueless. There's a reason, y'all, that airlines don't make the flight attendant the pilot. It's not how it works, but they do it and they can't seem to figure out why the company's not growing. Like, it's just crazy. So if we can find out, again, the way companies make decisions before we ever engage with them, it just saves my entire team and me an immense amount of migraines. We'd rather have it that way.
I love it. All right. So tell me more about, in sales coaching, why you look for DPI rather than KPIs. Explain that to me.
Sure. We can use we could use soccer. We could use baseball, I guess. Actually, you know what? We will go back to what I saw last night on the Olympics. So this kid, Steven, for the US team, right? They won bronze, at the time we're recording this, and was amazing. The US men's gymnastic team hasn't won in 16 years. And it came down to one kid on one apparatus, right? He had to nail his routine on the pommel horse. And if he did, the US would win bronze, which is pretty incredible, right, for us. And he nailed it. And when they were doing all these interviews, all these kids have been on USA Today and so on, like, how you all started in prelims, how the heck did you come back and win bronze? And they said, all we did was focus on our own routine, What am I doing right now? And we know if we execute each of our routines collectively, we will succeed as a team. That is a DPI. So a daily performance indicator. So for a salesperson, did I execute my Zoom discovery meeting with my prospect? What do you mean? Well, did I show up 3 minutes before? Did I prepare for 25? Did I execute? Whether or not they buy, that is a KPI, right? And this is why so many salespeople fail and so many companies fail, because they're measuring success based on the color of the medal, right? Without focusing on how you get the darn medal. And this is why, again, quotas are just insanely intergalactically idiotic. Um, you know, farmers don't yell right at their crops. Grow faster, corn. You what? Well, we need 10 million bushels, and last year we had 9.4 million. So if you don't grow faster, no, that's not. You plant right, and then you water right, and then you have the right sunlight. Those are DPIs, right? So what are the things that are in a salesperson's control that they can execute daily? And those collections of daily performance indicators will always lead to more sales, but maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow. For time, the compounding interest of focusing on what you can control, it's incalculable. But that's not what's taught, right? Got to do the KPIs. We looked at spreadsheets, right? We spent 3 hours on projections. Did you spend any time on better executing a conversation with a prospect? No. Did you role play how to do discovery meetings more effectively? Did you narrow down your ICP of to whom you should be speaking? No. We spent a lot of time on vision building. No. You have to do the competence to win, but none of this stuff is taught, and it's crazy to me.
It seems that there's so many aspects of sales that need changing. What is generally your starting point? You understand that the leadership have an open mindset. They really do want to change. They are going to listen to you. You're the coach.
Yeah.
But there's a lot, generally you'll find in an organization, there's a lot going wrong, whether it's the individuals, whether it's the lack of sales process, whether it's the poor coaching, whether it's the leadership. I mean, there's normally a whole host of things.
Yes.
So, we going into organizations often need to have a quick win in order to do the kind of like the kind of steady 2-year progress, so that each of those are going to be a win and make a massive difference in the organization. But you can't do everything all at the same time. So where's your starting point?
Most of it's leadership, believe it or not, because if they don't get it, right, and they don't hold people accountable, it's nothing can be done. So many times companies will go, "Hey, Steve, can you help us fix our sales team? Like, can you go look in the mirror? Because that's the problem." Like it's always about someone else other than them. And so why aren't the salespeople coming to the sales trainings, right? Why don't they come to the meetings? Why don't they give me the reports on time? Because you don't do any of those things. What do you mean? You know the answer. So if we don't get buy-in and adoption from the leadership team, it's never going to work, right? No matter what. So we always start there. Once people see it and their team is like, I haven't Jessica attended training in 10 years. Now she's going to training and trying to get better. Wow, maybe I should do that. But they don't. It's all the whole, do as I say, not as I do stuff. So I think it's best to start there with anybody that does any type of, it's like you have to start at the top. Most important.
Yeah. So then, I talk a lot about customer-centric sales and really kind of focusing on your customers. So what steps have you taken working with a sales organization to develop buyer and customer centricity?
I think it's really important. And you and I, but what process building and so on, right? But really spending time, and sometimes it takes months to really narrow down to whom you should be speaking. But if you ask the average salesperson, who's your ideal customer? The average salesperson. The first answer is, I don't know. The second answer is sufferably alive with some form of currency. No, you can't just sell to anyone with a pulse. But the problem is that that's what they're told to do. Like, you have to hit. Well, why would we have to hit an arbitrary quote? What if they're the wrong customer? We don't care. Well, what if they can't pay the? Don't care. What if they talk bad about us? We don't care. We hit our arbitrary number. So it's just crazy. But it takes time. But you got to start with the right clients who want to change.
So how do they know they've got, I mean, I have a process. How do they know they've got the right clients?
So sometimes it's hard to measure, but in the way I personally do it for my company is our unsolicited testimonials and referrals. Like, are people just sending their to us? Some of you may be in a service world. Is it a 5-star review, right? Is it a recommendation? Is it people just posting how great you are? That's how you know.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's interesting that I often talk about future-proofing your revenue and doing that through your customers. And I do a lot on kind of stats and research and things, as I know you do as well. And 20, you've got the 80-20 rule. 20% of your customers give you 80% of your revenue. It may be 30-70, but it's generally you have key customers. In every market you have those people and those key customers may be even your top referrers, not necessarily the ones that give you revenue. It's not always measured in revenue, but actually if you look at 20% of the 20%, they're going to be your future customers as well. So it's often what I get companies do to identify who they are. Who are your future customers? They're the ones that you need to invest in now, because your market is changing all the time.
Right.
And so they've got to be people that love you.
Yes.
But often some customers don't know you enough to love you as well. So it's kind of understanding where your sweet spot or where is your competitive advantage. So when you're working with companies that don't really understand who their customers are, then they won't understand what their marketing message is. And then they won't necessarily have the sales process to sell to that group of customers. So I know that you very much work on so many companies. I think it's 86% of companies do not have a defined sales process.
Correct. Yeah.
We've kind of understand that maybe because they don't really understand their, who is their ideal customer. But when they do not have a defined sales process, what do you do then?
So those companies, which we know most of them are, right, in essence, are order takers, which you can be a successful company, right, by taking orders. You can't scale or grow to great heights, right? But you could get orders because you have a good product or a good service. It's all mindset, though. It's spending time to build the playbook and build the process and make sure, right, that the CRM matches with the sales cycle and all of those things, and that marketing is actually marketing to the right people. So the salesperson, right, has a better chance of converting that sale. But we can tell, again, probably within the first or second meeting, that if they say, well, we don't have time to build the process. Well, it's like in football. It would American football. It would be like saying, we don't have time to do a playbook. What do you mean? Yeah, we're just going to let the guys or gals just run around and just yell at them to score touchdowns. Like, no, you have to have a playbook that all 53 people are on the same page, that know where each other's going to be at certain parts. And if they don't talk to one another, bad things happen. So if sales doesn't have a good relationship with fulfillment, right? If fulfillment doesn't have a good relationship with marketing, if marketing doesn't have a good relationship with procurement or whatever, then it's like little kids playing soccer. Some of you listening know, you go and watch your 5, 6, 7-year-old. It's like a line, in Peanuts. It's just a big cloud of kids, right? That's how companies run their sales process, and can't figure out why we don't score goals. So it's nuts.
It is nuts. It is nuts. Okay. So what one tried and tested strategy would you offer listeners and how to scale their sales?
Tool, right, that we use. It's put people in position because they're going to do what they love to do. So you have salespeople who are amazing prospectors and hunters, and they will go and find business. And you've got them in some sort of inside something. Or you've got somebody in inside sales who's the most amazing, right, at farming and upselling and getting additional deals and referrals and things like that. And you should have them out, right, with your customers, not taking inbound calls. So we all know in some of this language, it could be EOS or Mr. Collins, but it really is sort of true with the right people in the right seats and so on. You just can't have generic, well, they're good at sales type of thing, right? And that's what I think holds most scaling, is putting people in position to execute their best skill and use of their time.
I think that's it's absolutely critical, and we all know when we're in our genius zone or zone of genius. It just, everything flows and it seems really easy, and we're much happier, and we come up with great ideas because we're really in tune with our customers. And actually, that it's a joy for our customers to be working with us, and we make it easy because we're able, what Steve Jobs says, you've got to anticipate what the customers want. Of course, you've got to challenge them because you really believe where they need to go, and will advise them accordingly. So having a team that's in tune with the customers is absolutely critical. So you say that not having there's no magic to sales methodology, and it's not foolproof to have a script to scale sales. So what is foolproof is having the right people in the right seats and using the sales DNA. Would you say that there is something in the leadership of that type of organization that really makes the difference?
Yeah, I think it's like, let's take cooking, for example, or maybe even baking. Cooking is more of an art, right? Baking is more of a science. And some of you love to cook and love to bake. I hate to bake. I love to cook. But in baking is a sales process. So if you're going to bake chocolate chip cookies, there are steps you have to take, and you cannot miss one. And if you miss one, no cookies. And you also can't improvise and go, well, I want 3 cups of sugar instead of 1. No, that's not going to come out right. But in baking, there's a recipe we have to follow, just like in a sales process. However, you cannot instruct, let's say you're baking with your daughter and she's 12 and she wants to use the yellow measuring cup. Cool, let her use it. But what leaders do is go, nope, you're using the red one. I don't like the red one. Well, that's the one you're using. That's how you stifle growth and creativity. Your daughter wants to measure it with her left hand. Cool. but you're a righty and it should be the right hand, you're dead. So if you lead like that, you're in big trouble. So there's a process that has to be followed, but not robotically. Some of y'all know the EOS language. I don't know if you do, Janice. But like Gino, who created EOS, and we run on it. We have a bunch of clients that do. Even Gino, the guy that created it, said, don't do it exactly like this. Even the guy that built it. So you have a lot of implementers who are so rigid and go, this is how you have to do it. And if you don't do it, you will be out of business. No, they won't. If they do most of it, and even I think Gino said, if you do 80% of what EOS does, you will crush, right, the rest of the people in your industry. It's the same in sales. So when you force people to say a word like this and an action like that, like it's not them. So they're not going to want to do it and they're not going to want to perform. And you can pick an actress, pick Meryl Streep or Tom Hanks or whatever. When they get a script, you don't think that they tell the director, yeah, this line isn't me? Of course they do. They don't just read word for word that the writer writes. That's not how it's done. They're allowed to be creative and ad lib and add lines and so on. And so you've got to give some leniency. They still have to follow the cookies, but it doesn't matter if it's a ceramic pan, steel pan, or whatever kind of cookie sheet. It doesn't have to be 9 by 12. It could be 8 by 11. But that's where people have the control issue as a leader, and it just crushes their culture, and their salespeople don't perform.
Yeah, you've seen that.
Yeah.
So Steve, if you're on a desert island on your own, what would be the one thing you took with you?
Netflix. Because everything in the world learn about history and what's happening in the world and documentaries and all the stuff that I like. And then you have the fun stuff, and then you have the movies. And so as long as it have some sort of touch, right, with the outside world in it, I may switch it to Wi-Fi, but that would probably be the one thing, because you can still be connected no matter what.
Right. So just as long as you're connected, you're happy to be marooned on a desert island.
Yeah, I could be anywhere, right? I could be talk to people, talk to my friends, still, it's we have to be connected, right? And just as human beings, or even part of the sales thing is people just don't understand that. Like, if you don't build a connection with the person to whom you're selling, why would they go with you? Like, and then again, those are just the order takers. So someone will buy something because they need a drink and they're thirsty, but are they going to come back to you for the next drink? Probably not. So we need to be, forget to always be closing, right? Always be connecting, would maybe be a better moniker.
Excellent. Excellent. So how can listeners get hold of you, Steve?
Easiest way is probably LinkedIn, Steve Heroux, Heroux. I post on there daily, and if it helps one person, great, right? We have no idea. I have no clue what's going to resonate. Sometimes we put something up, we get a few comments. Other times it's like 600 shares. It's crazy. So I just want to help other people see the light, right? There's a different way. You don't have to be Blake from Always Be Closing and Glengarry Glen Ross and all that stuff. You don't have to do that stuff. You can be a normal human, likable person, and if they don't buy from you, it's okay. It's okay. It's not the end of the world.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I'm so glad I've got you on Scale Your Sales podcast. So thank you so much, Steve, for being a guest on Scale Your Sales podcast.
Thanks again, Janice. Thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Scale Your Sales podcast. If you like this discussion, feel free to listen to other episodes or watch the captioned show on YouTube and subscribe to future episodes. I would really appreciate it if you would leave a positive review on iTunes. Thank you.